panels that we are merging. The first one is supposed to be, it's actually a continuation of the discussion that we had before lunch, which really is titled Towards a Free, Fair and Inclusive 2026 Election, Upholding Civic Freedoms, Empowering Responsible Media, and Ensuring All Voices are heard. In the earlier session, the Minister for Justice declared hostility to the media, and I was about to actually correct him because he was asking why he's given a certain kind of response by the media, but then the other party, the National Unity Platform, I think, is one he was referring to. They didn't even cover their delegates conference. But I wanted to remind him about a phenomenal remark from one of the professors that passed on recently. That news, okay, which basically the media is about, is when a man bites a dog, okay? But not when a dog bites a man, okay? Because when a dog bites a man, that is normal. It's okay. When a man bites a dog, that is really strange, okay? So responsible media engagement is one of the things that we are going to be talking about in this panel. The second panel, and in that panel I have Perry Aritua from the Women's Democracy Network. Aritua, okay? And then Julius Muchunguzi, the spokesperson of the EC. He already has a number of questions from the earlier sessions that we had. The second panel is addressing political violence and promoting peaceful electoral processes. We should have had Professor Baligayomwe Rogers. I think he's not yet here, but okay. In the event that he comes, probably can be given time to speak. But the panelists for that session basically are, I think it's Kulaiji Habat, that is Hillary, sorry, that is replacing Ubaldo, okay? And then Lewis Ruongoya, who is the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. He's not yet here. In case he comes, we shall be able to engage with him. So let's just quickly delve into the discussion. And I have a set of questions for each of the panelists that are present. I'm going to give you your questions in advance such that when your time comes, you are able to at least speak to them. Now, for Perry, there are 5 questions that I would like you to respond to, but of course, aware of time, we really need to be a bit snappy. The first question is on how differently is civil society prepared to engage in the next elections? The second question is how can citizens prepare to deal with internet shutdown? Because it appears internet shutdown is no longer an imagination, it's a reality that we are with. It has happened in 2 elections, it will happen in the next elections. The third question is, how is civil society planning to, the second question is the third question is what steps is the civil society sector taking to ensure inclusive citizen participation amidst a hostile operating environment? And then the fourth is the media is a strategic partner to civil society. Okay, I don't know how to call people to order, but maybe if you can help me such that we can have one meeting. The media as a strategic partner to civil society, and considering that they are also dealing with the same hostilities as civil society is dealing with. I mean, this morning, the minister declared hostility. I think he's on record. But also we learned that NTV, NBS, Monitor, and others are basically blocked. They have been given a blackout in terms of reporting specifically on the president and other engagements where he is. So how can civil society support the media to be better prepared to engage with such a hostile environment? The final question that I have for you, which really emerges from the ongoing conversation around the amendments to the NGO regulatory framework, as well as the interesting remarks which were made by one of the commissioners of the Electoral Commission of the Human Rights Commission today, Crispin, that government should finance civil society work regarding civic and voter education. what is your position on government funding of civil society in light of the patronage politics that the country grapples with? Julius? Okay, Julius, the first question really, I would like you to provide some clarification. There are a couple of things you said in the morning, representing the EC chair, but also the minister alluded to a number of things that I think this audience would like really to benefit from in terms of clarification. The first question is really something that you did mention in respect to accreditation of civic organizations that want to do voter education. And you actually, I don't know whether it was your opinion or that is the official position now of the Electoral Commission, that even when they are not accredited, civil society organizations can go ahead and monitor and observe as well as undertake voter education. You clarify, okay? So I wanted really for you to clarify whether civil society organizations can actually go ahead without getting this accreditation, and whether you have prepared the other relevant agencies that you work with that civil society organizations have been dealing with on the ground to actually understand this. The second question is on technology. The minister did mention that there's a new law that we should be expecting. I thought maybe you could provide a bit more clarity on that because we've had a couple of questions about technology, things like procurement of the technology, training, deployment of the technology, but also the question of time. Do we have enough time between now and when the next elections will happen for that technology to actually be rolled out? The third question is for you. You've kept alluding to the fact that civil society and the Electoral Commission are strategic partners in this. Civil society has time and again been targeted by the state, but most importantly by the security agencies. Even when you have accredited them, they have been raided, they've been arrested. Just in this place where we were in the last elections, they were picked up, accredited civil society organizations. So what extra is the Electoral Commission planning to do to protect civil society, both that have been accredited and those that have not been accredited, to do their work without any interference from the state? The fourth is really related to a remark that was alluded to by Dr. Sarah Birete in her opening remarks about dealing with violence in elections, especially the conduct of the security agencies, that we can have a code of conduct on the behavior of these security agencies. The question is the issue on the lack of guidelines for these security agencies, or it is impunity? And how do we deal with impunity? Because most cases, you actually see a number of these agencies doing things that they are not supposed to be doing. How is the EC prepared to actually help address that question of impunity? There are just two final questions for you. Most recently, we had the courts annul the Kawempe by-election. We have had, not officially though, that the Electoral Commission will not appeal that decision. I think this is quite strange. It's the first time that something like that has happened. So could you just explain to us a bit why the Electoral Commission has taken that position, such that it doesn't look, because now we are looking for independence and impartiality of the EC. Finally, is on the question of boundary demarcation. We know that that process was concluded, but also we are aware that there are new districts which have been created. Can you help us shed a light on that whole question of the final boundaries? And then my third panelists, your questions. I have three main questions for you. The first one is, there seems to be a blurry line between the roles of the different security agencies, especially around elections. Most importantly, the police and the military, because we see the military taking a more visible role, especially when right now as we head into the elections. How, and of course there's a lot of criticism from different circles, how are the security agencies preparing to ensure that everybody plays their role? The second question is on the emergence of paramilitary groups. We are seeing so many paramilitary groups emerging now. some that are state connected and others even connected to the opposition. We are hearing of the Egali. I hope Lewis will be here with us to explain a bit on that. We are hearing of NRM vote guardians. Most recently, I think last week, we had the CID, former CID chief was actually attacked by goons. I think the son is still hospitalized. But also we have heard of the PLU. We don't know how it is operating, whether it's a political party, an NGO, but there's a lot of online violence. How is the police preparing to deal with this emerging form of violence ahead of the next elections? The final question for you is, what is the Uganda police doing differently to build citizen confidence about having a violent free election environment? I'll pause there for now and let the discussion now flow. Perry, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Job. My first question is, how differently is civil society, especially CSOs, prepared to engage in 2026? And I think you added the word differently. How differently are we organizing? Three things. You know, the international standards for holding elections world over. That's why you have laws, both international and regional instruments, which have also been domesticated in our constitution, in the different electoral laws, including the Parliamentary Elections Act, Presidential, the Electoral Commission Act, and then the ones for the lower levels, including the Local Government Act. Now, I want to underscore the fact that we actually complement government. And in this case, we complement the Electoral Commission when we do this work. And that's why there are things we should not actually be doing differently, because our role is hinged. For instance, if we want to observe elections, it's hinged on Section 16 of the Electoral Commission Act. It's a legal right for NGOs and other actors, even individuals, to apply for accreditation to observe the election. So for me, I think the first thing is for the duty bearers, and in this case, Electoral Commission, to support the work of the NGOs. Because even as we grapple with facts in terms of, for instance, in Kawempe North, there were not many, I don't even know whether there were NGOs who observed the elections. The thing that NGOs bring to the process is a level of independence and transparency which the other actors may not have, because the agents are aligned to a political party. But the NGOs are independent election observers. So they add value to especially a process where there's conflict in terms of the outcome, because they are there at the polling stations, they're able to either say these are the true results. But when you only have the agents and the Electoral Commission, then you're caught in a catch-22. And that's why I think it is critical for us to do certain things as provided for in the law. Let NGOs be accredited, let them be accredited early. Let's guarantee that we will not be arrested for doing this work, because we are actually complementing the Electoral Commission and enhancing its confidence. They may not see it that way, but that's the perspective in which we participate. The other, of course, is voter education. The advantage we bring is that at times there are spaces we reach which the Electoral Commission may not reach. I can tell you that in 2021, a number of the radio talk shows that we are providing voter education, those platforms were paid for by NGOs. And we are ensuring that the Electoral Commission officials were part and parcel of these panels, because they are the professionals in terms of election knowledge. So ours was bring the platform, let them speak to the population. Now, when you don't have accreditation, there are limitations, especially for voter education, because even in the districts, they'll ask you, where's your accreditation? So it eases our work. And that's why I'm saying there are things that are hinged in the law, and we should not even be doing them differently. What we would be asking is for the duty bearers to understand the benefit that we bring and to support our work. That when we apply for accreditation, accredit us. When for some time, I will see a poster and I'll know that this poster will not be inclusive. For instance, if you want to communicate the fact that the open seats are open for both men and women, that's a very big problem in this country right now, that you find most people still think the open seat is for men. And we are not having that communication. I know a number of the candidates who are standing for the open seat are struggling. But because our peers have not been accredited, they can't get that independent information. The EC is not in many of these areas. Yesterday we had a conversation with some of the candidates from Lamour, from Kamuli, and they're like, guys, we need your help. But we are saying, look, we cannot come to do voter education because the law says we must get accreditation. So for me, it is really seeing us as a partner instead of an adversary. Now, what things can we do differently this time? For me, one is to ensure that more Ugandans take interest in the affairs of this country, because you cannot leave this work to civil society. You're a citizen, number one. Even us who work in NGOs, we are citizens first. So just the commitment to contribute and say we want a peaceful election, it doesn't mean that you should wait for resources to do this work. If you have a platform where you can communicate, you know, to the population, and you have accurate information, communicate that information. Many of us are online right now. At times, candidates don't even know the nomination process, especially the new candidates. You know, someone calls you and says, by the way, I have A level. Do I need to go to the National Council for Higher Education? And these are candidates. And I'm thinking this information should have been there. Like they should have it, but they don't. So for me, my call is for the citizens who have this information to take it upon themselves to educate those who need this information, or to refer people to the Electoral Commission. In all our spaces, we have been encouraging the candidates to create a relationship with the EC officers at the district level. Because at times the law may say something, but the guidelines will give details. So we have been encouraging them. You have to create a relationship. Whether you belong to the NRM or the other opposition parties, the Electoral Commission is in charge of elections. So you can't avoid doing that. So those are some of the things that we are doing differently. And then, of course, because there's social media, we're increasingly sharing more information on social media. Because as you know, funding for NGOs has decreased. So we are using the tools that we have. Then, of course, we have worked with a number of community-based organizations over the years. So we're also sharing information with the community-based organizations and saying, guys, please give information. The other thing that we have continued to do is to train candidates. And people wonder, why do you train candidates? Because we want people who will go into this election when they know why they've been running. I can tell you over maybe the last 2 months, we have been training candidates, especially women, because we're women's rights organizations, women candidates across the board, because what we are looking for is serious, committed women leaders who want to vie for elections. So regardless of their party, because for us, when a woman shines, we feel proud, regardless of the ticket that she used. So those are the things we have been doing. And the last one is using the informal groups that are already organized in the communities. You have a lot of these circles. They meet to, I don't know, discuss money. Increasingly, we are telling them, look, you have a bigger role. You know, this work that we are doing, ensuring that people know, for instance, if you're a candidate, these are things you need to do. We're giving them information. And that information is on the Electoral Commission website. The nomination process and everything is there. So we are sharing that information, using the resources we have, but also ensuring that these groups see that their role is not only to, you know, borrow and save, but there's so much more they can do because they meet often, they're already organized. What we are also maybe calling on the Electoral Commission is to ensure that there is more audience given to those groups because they meet every week. Now, you imagine if 30 groups, women and youth especially, are meeting every other week and information is being shared. They do not keep it there because they belong to churches, they belong to mosques, they're in different other groups. So for me, I think the ultimate is creating the partnerships with the Electoral Commission at different levels, ensuring that candidates have access to information and that also voters know what their roles and rights are. So those are the few things that we are doing differently this time. But maybe just to end that, there are things hinged in the law where we require the support of the Electoral Commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Perry. Okay, I thought maybe, okay, let's move on to Julius. Probably can get back to you. Julius, the first question that I asked you was about the role of civil society and whether they can go ahead and do voter education unaccredited.
So what the law says, both in the Constitution, Article 61, that the Electoral Commission shall, implement voter education programs, and then in the Act, the Electoral Commissions Act, it speaks specifically about. Let me read it so that we are sure. It says that that is Section 12, that the Electoral Commission additional powers is to accredit any non-partisan individual, group of individuals, or institution or association to carry out voter education. So that role is spelled out in the law, in the Act. But I believe that this specifically relates to the period of the roadmap. That period, this period in which we are, the electoral roadmap, where we have intense activities related to elections, where any information that we share carries a lot of weight, and misinformation can actually have disastrous effects. So I would like members here to view accreditation and its requirements in good faith as a positive attribute in the law that is meant to ensure that we are on the same page, we have the right information that has been cleared, that whose content has got the approval of the body in the law, in the Constitution, charged with elections in this country. I believe the framers of these provisions really saw and still see that accreditation is a good thing, and we should clearly and gladly participate and seek that accreditation. I know that this time around there were delays. There were delays in the process of processing the applications that came. Perhaps there were even issues that were not pleasant to some of the actors. But these are necessary processes and procedures. The verification process may have taken longer, but as I speak today, I am confident to tell you that a number of organizations that applied for accreditation have received those accreditations. If there are any that applied, I am not seeing any in the room except Dr. Virete and NGO Forum. Then we would want to know why, if only it's a delay in the communication. But I wish to.
Julius, you can actually do a quick poll because I know there are so many CSOs in this room.
Yes.
You can ask who has received accreditation. I think that's the question.
For me, I've seen, I'm not going to ask.
No, in the room, who has received accreditation?
I do not know the people you invited and who is in the room. So I will not risk asking people to put up their hands
on your behalf.
But I can tell you that I've seen a list and I've seen people come to pick those accreditation. If there are any of those that applied and have not been replied, I'm happy and I will take this feedback back to the commission to say their concerns. And really, life and these institutions, these are public institutions, and the work that we do is for the people of Yuga. Are those people making noise?
Please, can we have one meeting in here?
Are they translating or they are making noise?
They're transcribing.
Oh, okay. I thought they were translating some other languages. So really, there are issues, and we must face them and must address them. I believe that we can only get better, and we need to get better and address any of the issues that make our electoral processes need to be improved. We are not where we should be. No, and no one should tell you that. And there's nowhere where you'll have elections that are perfect. But we should always work towards perfecting our imperfections and our imperfect processes. And that is the commitment of the Commission. I know for sure that the Commission considers civil society organizations as critical partners. Otherwise, we would not be here. The chairperson would not have sent me to come to this gathering. But it is because we believe that you definitely add value, you are complementary to the efforts of the Commission, and we cannot envisage, because we only have 800 staff of the commission. Civil society reaches millions. It will therefore be foolhardy not to consider and work with civil society organization in this enterprise and this endeavor of making sure that our citizens know why they vote and why they should participate and what their roles, rights, and responsibilities are.
Julius, I would like to make your work a bit more difficult, if you allow me to.
Please do.
And I would like to ask just two quick questions following
Yes.
that. The first one is, when can the organizations in this room and even outside that are following online expect to all have their accreditation? Because there are people that applied in January last year and up to now, they have not received their accreditation, and I'm aware of those.
I wanted also to say, now that you've asked that question, that voter education and civic education should not be tagged and tied to the roadmap. Even during, because you don't buy an umbrella when it is raining. We should not be buying umbrellas when it is raining. We should buy umbrellas before it starts raining. So by the time it rains, our people know. And so the civil society organizations, we call upon you, even when we don't have a roadmap, let us continue with the process and activities of educating our people about their civic responsibilities in the electoral process and in governance generally. Because I believe that civil society organizations are not only waiting for, because Ugandans do not live for elections every day. Elections are seasons, they come and go, but there is so much more in our governance that contributes our electoral processes. So the accreditation is during this period. But let us make sure that even in other periods of our entire, cycles, we continue to do the same. Now, the question that you, what did you ask?
So,
Because I wanted to
Okay.
first make the point that I wanted to make.
yeah. So
Not the
when-
one which will make myself,
when
my
can-
life discouraged.
so those that wrote to the
Yes.
Electoral Commission,
I believe that those that were successful have been reached out to. Those who have not yet been reached out to, maybe they will be reached out to with the answer, whether it is a positive or a negative. And they will be given reasons why they were successful and why they were not successful. But I can tell you that one of the things I saw was compliance with with filing returns. Filing returns. We generally don't, civil society organizations, some of them, not all, we don't want to follow rules sometimes. Not all. But because we are civil, sometimes we think filing returns is an inconvenience. And I saw some really very good civil society organizations who have been failing to file returns as required by the law that sets up NGOs. And really now. So these were some of the requirements, but I specifics. No. No, those ones who put up their hands, without me asking, one of the criteria I know for sure was that you had to be compliant with the requirements of the law that governs NGOs. If you know that there are gaps in that respect, then you can begin to know what the result was. So I think that is to do with accreditation. I don't know whether I should speak about the technology. Now, the Electoral Commission and our electoral processes have been embracing different technologies at different stages. Those who remember the first elections that we had in 1996 will recall the format and form of our voters register. Passport photos would be taken and planted with saliva and some of them with the salt tape to a paper register. We had the paper register, but over time that has evolved, and today we are proud to say that in voter registration a lot has changed, a lot has improved, and technology keeps evolving with so many different things coming along. But I think what is of interest now is the verification of the voter using biometrics. This is the direction that the country and the commission is taking. The commission is procuring enough machines that will be able to verify every voter. And the law is going, I mean, they are working on the law, the regulations. It will be that if you can't be verified using the machine, then you will not vote. Okay? No BVK verification, no vote. And the point is to ensure that hopefully we can now build a little bit of trust, because we know Ugandans, not all of them, but we know that we need to work towards increasing the level of trust in our institutions. Many institutions are struggling with trust. The commission is not an exception, but we work every single day to make sure that we respond to the questions and the issues raised by the people, and to make sure that we're as transparent as possible. And this effort of the biometric verification is part of the package of ensuring that we believe in we trust the process, and ultimately, therefore, trust the result. So there will be no chance for ballot stuffing. Yes, there will be no chance for ballot stuffing. It is going to be one man, one woman, one vote. If the machine can't verify you, unless if you say you have similar biometrics, which I doubt, but we hope that that will be one step towards building confidence in our electoral process. But it's technology, it's technology. We need to do much more beyond technology. Technology assists us and facilitates the process of building trust. But we believe that we need to do much more, become more transparent, more engaging the stakeholders, responding to the questions of the people, improving where we must, so that we own this election. These elections are not for the EC. And that's why the Commission has been very consistent in saying that to have free and fair, credible, transparent elections, you can't say that we leave it to the Electoral Commission. We can't do it alone, because we don't field candidates, we don't vote, we don't, all these cases and incidents that undermine the integrity of our elections are not done by the Electoral Commission. When we are doing event activities where some actors are not involved, it's peaceful. But the moment we open up the floodgates to say nominations, then the party begins. When we say campaigns, then I don't know what happens. So it means there must be an issue with the other actors in the electoral process when they begin coming in. The candidates, political parties, the voters, security. Yes. So if we all follow the laws of the land, we can be able, and we are able, to have elections that are better than the previous ones. And I believe, and I want all of us to be optimistic and look forward with hope and work towards that hope that we are capable as a country to have free, credible, transparent elections. But each one of us in our various stations in life will have to play our roles according to the law. No one is above the law.
Okay, Julius, if you could just respond to two last questions. The one on the stance by the Electoral Commission on the Nalukola by-election in Kawempe, and then the final one will be on the boundary demarcation.
So obviously, as you know, the case of Kawempe is in court. One of the parties appealed. You know that we are jointly sued as the commission, and we are very law-abiding. We will wait for the outcomes of the Court of Appeal. We will wait for the outcomes of the Court of Appeal, and as always, the Commission will respect the judgments passed by the courts, because the courts are the only recourse accepted in the law, in our Constitution, when you have any dispute regarding elections. I won't say more about it, because the lawyers know that I will be, going against the sub judice rule. So I won't go beyond that. And demarcation, on demarcation, what do you want to know about?
Boundary demarcation, I think, was complete, as far as I understand. But
yes,
there are new districts which have been created.
So regarding Tororo, we heard about it in the news just like you did. But the commission does not act on the basis of news. There are processes that institute new electoral, no instrument that is directing us from what we have on the record as of now. But if it is brought to us, then we will act depending on that decision at that point. But we must, one point that should end on this particular matter is that the commission has always been clear that if there are going to be any reforms relating to elections, let them be timely. Let them come in time to avoid stampeding the entire process. Okay? But secondly, we should know that we are not legislating for 2026. All reforms shouldn't simply be targeting a roadmap or a general election that is around the corner. We should be pushing reforms that are meant to improve the conduct of our elections today, tomorrow, and for the future. Because Uganda is not running away. It's not ending in 2026. It will be here in 2031. So if we want to push those reforms, we should not sleep now that they are not able to affect this general election, and we say now we are going to sleep. We should continue to push for reforms that will improve the way we do things, not just targeting 2026, but targeting improvement for posterity.
Okay, thank you so much, Julius. Let's clap for him.
Sorry, you have even to appeal to them to clap for me, but really, we are your electoral commission. Please
Clap properly for Julius. Okay, so we'll go to Mr. Kulaije. Mr. Kulaije, there is a proposal about a code of conduct to deal with election violence. And of course, we've seen time and again the military seeming to play more visible role than the police, which I think should be the other way around. What are your views about the possibility of a code of conduct? Is that something that the police can push for? And how do we ensure that the lines are clearly drawn for each of the security agencies?
Thank you so much, moderator. Once again, I'm Commissioner of Police, Kulaige Hirare. I'm the Deputy Chief Political Commissar. I'm representing my boss, AIGP Bamnaba Obaldo, who was supposed to be here, but he later got an urgent matter. It's true, and it is catered for in our constitution, that police can work with other sister agencies. But the fact is, police should take the lead. It is not either the other side. And I know, and of course I've been listening, referring mainly on this concluded by-election of Kawem, where we saw people putting on a JAT uniform, then soldiers beating people. What I can say, that matter is jointly being investigated, meaning there were some issues here and there. And indeed, whoever will be found guilty will have to answer. But police, we are supposed to take the lead. And as the minister said, we are not to come as the first instant. They can be first when things are not moving on well. And what I can assure you is that police, we are prepared, we've learned lessons, we've recruited, we've trained. I know we shall manage this coming elections. But note that here and there, we may not call on UPDF or military police for any assistance. But we are in charge of the security of these elections, and I know we shall manage. Of course, with the support of everyone. If everyone does what he's supposed to do, I can assure you these elections will go as planned. Violence, I don't think as police there's anyone that benefit from the violence, because many have been beaten in the process. Some have died in the process. So there is no way any serious police officer can support violence. So let us do whatever we're supposed to do. You people of civic education, let us educate the voters. Let them also know what they are supposed to do. Staying in a Nansana zone what? doesn't mean that you are a voter there. If you didn't register from there, but come and you will say you have to vote from there because you are staying there. That's how violence starts. The second question is you had asked me about.
So the other question is on the emergence of paramilitary groups. How is the police planning to deal with them? We are seeing, I mean, the military has been saying NUP is training Chakamchaka people. They are doing parades. They have a galley. There's that, but also we've had NRM has what they call vote guardians. Most recently, I think just over the weekend, you saw that the former head of CID was actually assaulted. The son, I'm meant to understand, is in Mulago. So police actually is also a victim of this violence. So the question is, PLU, we have seen the way, I mean, their leader has been drumming the drums of war or violence online. You've been seeing this. We don't know whether you're investigating that online, but also we've seen some physical actions here and there. So the question is, how is the police prepared to deal with these episodes of violence that are likely to emerge because of the paramilitary groups that seem to be emerging?
Which I forgotten. One leader also said that people should form those vigaries. But what I can say, and why we should all be concerned, something starts small. At a certain time, no one has control. This vigard issue may seeing it as a small thing, but if it is not managed, it is going to be a serious problem. I'm told almost every leader now has a chigai.
No, the NRM has vote guardians, 450,000 they're planning to recruit.
All those ones are illegal. That's what I can say. They are illegal, and we must have a stop on it. You said you gave the example of my former boss, Yakuro. Innocently from the bank, the Chigari bumps in them. Next time it will be on Dr. Virete. Another day it will be on you. So if it is not stopped now, it is going to be a serious issue. Even these people who are forming this brigade, don't have any control. They will turn against them. So as police, we have a duty to stop it. And any leader who is encouraging the formation of this brigade, let it be NRM, let it be NUP, let it be FDC, it is bad because we have very many unemployed youth. You will empower them like that. At the end of the day, you will not control them. As police, we are trying to make sure that we stop it when it is still early. And you can also give a hand to discourage this brigade issue because it will not take this country anywhere.
Will police investigate the online violence that we have seen, which some people in PLU are actually meting out on other parties?
Investigations are on. I may not go into details, and not one-sided. That one I can assure you. But investigations are ongoing because all these things are illegal. Let it be from NRM, let it be from NUP or any other party.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kulaije.
The last question was on what are we doing better?
What are you doing differently to build citizen confidence about a violence-free 2026 election? Different from what has, because I mean the past elections, especially the last one, was very violent.
It's true, the last one, and I think because of the period of COVID, the guidelines that were given then were a bit tricky, and no candidate was willing, especially a particular candidate, we are not willing to follow the guidelines that were given by Minister of Health. If they talk of 200 people, we are doing what? We are having rallies. But which is not the case now. Police were in touch with the Electoral Commission, and it will even come from Electoral Commission because whenever it comes from police, we are labeled now. So it is going to come from them. For us, it will be enforcing. And our officers, trainings are going on each and every day. There's one which has been concluded in Chikandwa, or the commanders of KMP and the CIDs, and actually the chairman of the Electoral Commission also was one of the facilitators. We are making it clear to the officers. You do contrary, you are going to be handled as an individual. We have officers who are overzealous, and people have been punished. Even the law of torture is very clear. Others are taken in civilian courts. Then others are taken in our disciplinary courts. So long as you go contrary on what you're supposed to do. And that's what we're insisting with our officers. If you fold your hands and army takes over and something happens, then you're going to be held responsible. If you beat someone, because we are not supposed to beat. If you beat someone, then you are held as an individual.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kulaije. Since you talked about a galley being illegal, I would like you to pass on the microphone to Mr. Sasi Marvin from the National Unity Platform. He's representing the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. I have 3 questions for you. The first one is really to give you an opportunity, considering that Mr. Kulaije has just declared the Egali illegal, and we know that you have been really strong on this. Just really for you to clarify to us, what is this whole Gali thing about?
Thank you,
Is it because I mean the military has actually said that you are training a paramilitary group, a militia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, fellow citizens, and good afternoon, fellow panelists. My name is Sas Marvin, and like I have already been introduced, I am really stepping in here for our Secretary General, Mr. David Lewis. So you will kindly excuse the late coming. I got to know about it at the last minute. But
Marvin, if you can hold on. Colleagues, it's Matia Ksajia says colleagues, money will come. But the room is so small, so other voices besides Marvin are really interrupting. They are disrupting us. If you could just hold it for maybe about another hour, when we finish, well and good.
so you see, the main problem we have in this country, at least from our perspective as the opposition, is that when you are dealing with institutions like the Uganda Police Force, like the UPDF and other security organizations, they deal with you from a point of deliberate, what I'll call deliberate prejudice. So you will find personnel like Commissioner Kulaije here, first of all, taking comments, deliberately taking comments out of their context. If I may briefly speak about Bigali, first of all, I want to clear the impression or the claim that Bigali, which he has not even had the courtesy of defining, that Bigali are illegal. I am not aware of any law in this country that outlaws them. In any case, I know that Article 29 gives every citizen the right and freedom to associate. Of course, by extension, if the purposes for that association are lawful. Bigali, in the case of NUP and in the context of the comments that were made by our president, really, in the most basic definition of them, these are just vote protection teams. Even if the phrase Mukore Gali had not come up, candidates standing for elections, be they from the opposition, be they from the ruling government, they have time and time again every election had teams that protect their votes at the time of casting. So Bigali really just means vote protection teams, and they have always been there. But of course, I understand from the context of police. At the end of the day, I'm sorry to say, but some things must really be said the way they are. At the end of the day, there's only one thing the regime and all institutions through which it does its activities are concerned about. That is purely and purely regime survival. So when security forces like the Uganda police are dealing with NUP, they will never deal with them in good faith and as citizens that have equal rights under the law. Never. They will always look at you from the point of these are criminals, we must deal with them. Right? Yeah, we can talk about the drill that happened on and I'm really borrowing their language. I doubt it was even a drill. But at the activity that happened on 12th February when
The parade.
yeah. Anyway, because I get from primary school, we've been having parades, and I don't think when I was a pupil at Shimoni demonstration school, I was participating in a military drill. But we've done those things over and over again. Then when supporters of an opposition candidate do a similar thing for their president on his birthday, you will see spokespersons like Commissioner Koraije putting on, I believe, if I recall very well, either they had the yellow t-shirts had a picture of Mr. Muhoozi Kainerugaba or his father. Were participating in drills and they were saying all sorts of things about and against the opposition, how they will never let it have free reign in the country. So I think I've said enough about a guard.
Yeah. For me, actually the question which follows that is how do you ensure that these vote protection groups that you are forming do not actually gravitate towards being agents of violence?
You see, we must not fall victim to the manipulation of the narrative by security agencies. No one really forms a vote protection team for the intention of perpetuating violence all over. I had the misfortune of participating in the last campaign. Anyone, whether you were following on social media, whether you were following on the news, you know what happened. I remember the meeting we had just had a meeting, I think with the Electoral Commission. If I recall very well, either it was 1st December 2020 or 5th December 2020. At the height of the violence we're experiencing, we were summoned for a meeting with the Electoral Commission headed by its chairperson. And in this meeting, we found, of course, we tried to raise concerns and complaints about what we had been enduring. First of all, we were not being allowed to hold a single successful rally. In other cases, though, the military and police, amidst bullets and tear gas and beatings, would make sure you don't even reach the campaign venue. In other cases, they would make sure you don't even enter the district you're supposed to campaign from. In other cases, they would make sure once you are done campaigning, if campaigning happened anyway, you have nowhere to sleep. So when we took all those things, when we're trying to raise all those concerns, Justice Byabakama would say one thing, that has been happening. Sorry, I'm not aware. Then the same gentleman pulls out videos of what they called processions. I really don't know how a presidential candidate can hold the campaign rally, can move from one point to another to go and campaign without really having people following him. Because at the end of the day, politics really is about perception. And if you are having one candidate like Katumba, you're moving with only one person escorting him, of course you will say the man, his campaign is a non-starter. But I guess I digress. So Mr. Byabakama would pull out and play for us videos. You see here, you were in a convoy, people were filling the road. And then for us, we had come with our own evidence in the form of photographs of Mr. Museveni engaging in even worse actions, right? But except that for him, it was ordinary citizens and the military doing those processions for him under protection of Uganda Police Force and other unknown security agencies. So one would complain of things like that. Mr. Byabakama would say, for me, I'm not aware. Then we tell him we pulled these things from social media. The same social media, I got the videos you were showing us. And then, so when it would come to us, we would say, I'm not aware. But what was my point? I think I got
You-
carried away somewhere
Okay,
along the
you
way.
can you can make it later.
Yes.
I would like to move to the audience. I have exactly 10 minutes. That means 10 minutes, 10 questions, or 10 minutes, 5 questions. 5 questions, okay? So 5 questions. By show of hands, let me see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9. Let me get a 10th. 1 minute each, okay? Can the microphone move? 1 minute and I'm timing you, please. Don't go into protocol. Don't thank us. We've gone through that. Okay, quickly.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgia Tumwesje, and I work with the Forum for Women in Democracy. A very big thank you to CCG for organizing this very timely conversation. And thank you very much to
Please don't thank
our
us.
panelists.
Please don't ask
No,
your question.
I have to. Now, mine goes to, of course, the Electoral Commission and the Uganda Police Force. I feel like you two should be the strongest partners in any electoral process. And yet very many times we feel like you're also observers. We have seen interviews where they ask the boss of the EC who is in charge of this chaos, and they cannot answer the question. The chaos, you don't organize chaos, but then you organize elections that then turn into chaos, are very chaotic. And then the Uganda police force is on board, and then out of nowhere we see people armed to the teeth, the Special Forces Command, UPDF, all manner of security organs, the Black Mamba, I think even planes and so on, dealing with unarmed citizens of the nation like we are at war. How can you assure us citizens of safety, that the police is going to protect us, is going to defend us, and that you're going to actually be able to arrest errant sister security agencies?
Point made.
We were very
Please,
proud
1
of you
minute.
when you
Point
arrested
made.
the UPDF officers the
made.
other time. So we hope you can protect us again.
Point made.
We
Thank
need
you so
that
much. Let's move to the
assurance.
next. We don't have time. Sarah, you be the last. You be the last. You're number 10. Yeah, please don't go through protocol.
Thank you.
Don't thank us. Okay?
Yeah. Mine is not a question. I'm from South Sudan.
Oh.
Mine is not a question, but I have a small concern about border education or civic education in Uganda. I don't know how civil society are looking for border education accreditation, because in other country, man, we did election during Sudan war. We don't need accreditation during the border education because it's our right to do border education for people to know. But there is a launch of the border education officially by the election commission for people to go. But you get accreditation during the election day when you are going for border education. I think this one need to be clear. Number two,
Okay, I want to move to the. Okay, since you're from South Sudan, you are our visitor. 30 seconds, quickly.
yeah.
Quickly.
The other one, I look at the group, what you are talking about, legali or like what? Legali.
Yes.
Let us be careful in whatever we are forming the group. Because when you form the counter group to other group, that is the starting point of the conflict. And I'm taking it in South Sudan. The crisis in South Sudan, it started small like that. The other group are forming their own people. This group is forming. In a few minutes, they are already having gun. The other one having gun, and then the country in war. It's not an easier thing. Yeah, people have to be careful on it. Seriously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who is number 3? You all have numbers. No, quickly. No. Okay, quickly. Let me see. So you're number 3. Who is number 4? Number 4, put up your hand. You're number 4. Anyway, I counted 10. Sarah is number 10. So, okay.
I find Marvin shouldn't defend himself. In 2010, we formed Power 10. It was treated as they are treating a guy. It is the only election where we performed better, had their reforms. That's what they're scared of. Don't be intimidated. That's one. 2, the guy is formed because the EC can't deliver the election. It can't deliver their reforms. That's why it is formed. A guy is deliver our vote because the EC can't deliver.
Okay.
Secondly, 800, no, it's 1 minute, it's not done.
Okay.
800 staff that she talks about as EC. EC has a person at a polling station. We count those people as your staff. Tell them they're responsible as you're responsible at the headquarters. they don't deliver, we deal with them. Because they are vote.
Okay, number 4. Who is number 4?
Job, you've made the situation complicated for us.
Please, quickly.
But to the Electoral Commission, we hear you on the issue of accreditation, but I feel there's more explanation to be done. We are, for instance, I'm from the Uganda National NGO Forum. We applied for accreditation in October last year. 8 months later, there's no response from the Commission. Now, in the Kawempe by-election, for instance, we were accredited, I think, 2 days to the election date. That would in a way imply that the Commission assumes that accreditation, for instance, for election observation is to observe the election date or the processes of the election or the voting activity. And yet now we have a series of activities, electoral activities that has been ongoing for a long time, but we are now still negotiating accreditation for voter education. We haven't crossed over to discuss accreditation for election observation. So you see the issue of time, there are so many processes that need to be observed, documented, and we're losing time on that. Finally, I want to sympathize and call upon everyone to sympathize with the Commission, especially when you look at the events that happened in Kawempe. I was an observer. I watched utter disrespect to the Commission. I watched as commissioners, top commissioners of the Commission, disrespected, sent away from polling stations by security forces. Now, when we raise questions to the Commission, we also have a responsibility as actors to pose questions to the powers that be that disrespect the Commission as it executes its mandate, because the most recent election we have had is the one we have had in Kawempe. What we saw there does not give hope and promise of a credible process in
Okay.
the election yet to come.
Thank you so much, Moses. Number 5.
Thank you so much, moderator. I'm Natural Barbara Nabaterega, Deputy President, Mukono North Constituency, National Unity Platform. My question is directed to the police officer who is responsible to call the CDF to order pertaining his misconduct on human rights violation, including abduction, unlawful detentions, and intimidations. And there is also another question on stretching the elasticity of election. Having a reflection of the village youth elections, Ugandans believe that it's a very clear litmus paper for the forthcoming elections.
Okay.
Yeah, that signify the harassments, unlawful abductions, and an free or fair election. And even there is a
think
last
that's for
question
Julius.
for the EC, giving them excuses for lacking funds for Ugandans and even a black spot on the integrity of vote. Since the EC and as well the government cannot organize a separate ballot election for the LOC1's chairpersons and as well the women elections committees on the village level, how are you going to go about it? Thank you so much.
Next, number 6. Your neighbor.
Thank you, moderator. I think my colleagues have really expressed what I had to say. Maybe just to ask the Electoral Commission, why don't you avail registers to people in opposition? We always find resistance, we always get excuses, and you keep postponing this until after the election or the deadline is done. Thank you very much.
You need to say your name again because you're contesting.
Oh, my name is Sheila Amanio, Mukono District, Woman Member of Parliament, hopeful 2026. Thank
Good.
you.
Okay. Number 7.
So just a minute, mine would be to, I think, the Electoral Commission on voter protection units. The gentleman from National Unity Platform said people have the right to associate, right? So if people are saying that they want voter protection units, why don't you legalize them? Say that you have the right to associate if you're NUP, because now it's just a game of pointing fingers. Even NRM has. So come up with guidelines and say that each party can have a voter protection unit. This is the code of conduct for a voter protection unit. You must have identity cards. You must subscribe to this and this. Then you'll solve the problem. Otherwise, you're going to go into another conversation of Vigali. And I was just doing some reading here. Vigali actually now being saying that these are unruly, young, uneducated youth. On the internet, I've said I read. I've not said it is my point of view, okay? So on the internet, it says,
You're protected, don't worry.
it is providing a certain perception which if you are not careful to legalize and protect, you're going to start perpetrating tribalism. Because they'll say, oh, this belongs to this party. No, come up with a code of conduct. Say you want your units. A voter protection unit will have 10 members that will have identity cards. How many do you want per region? So organize things so that you don't have ambiguity flying all over the place.
Okay, I don't know that Noop will buy into that. We had the number 9, we go to 10. Farida then, oh, really? Oh, wow. Oh, number 8, okay. Joe, you can speak first, then Farida, then Sarah. Okay, Joe?
Joseph Ochieno, Uganda People's Congress. Excellent stuff. This is really to Julius. Julius, I did not intend to bring this up, but you're really reassuring to us because you said the EC is law-abiding, and you specifically said that courts are the only recourse where citizens raise election matters. Now, you know that Uganda People's Congress has had leadership issues, and you know that in 2015, there was a contested election process, which Perry will find interesting, and that the matter went to court. Court ruled against a particular end candidate. It went to Court of Appeal. Court ruled against that candidate. It went to the Supreme Court, the same thing. That particular individual happens to be Jim Akena, my brother, who is in Uganda House, and he's the person seemingly you recognize. Court had asked for fresh elections. Fresh elections took place. I happen to have won it, but you realize I don't call myself president because I abide by both the party and the national laws. I'm waiting for a declaration of some sort to be that. But my question is, why should you formally recognize and work with an illegality?
Okay. Okay, Farida.
Yeah, I'm not going to thank anyone. I am Farida Rule, the Executive Director of Ushahidi Foundation, Uganda. And I have been accredited to do voter education for 2025-2026 general elections.
Clap for Julius. Okay, Farida, go on, please.
Myself, I will not clap for Julius because I know exactly what I went through. So
okay.
Yeah.
Farida, please go on.
Exactly. I had to have the EC as if it is part of my office for me to get the accreditation. But at least finally I got the accreditation and I'm happy with that. My question goes to security, police. Really, after Kawempe, I was dumbfounded because I do not see the role of polling constables anymore. They were as useless as Farida. They were not safe. So I am doubting whether you will even be able to deploy the same police officers that I saw in Kawempe.
Okay.
We want an assurance before we go into this election that you will manage the election. The events in Kawempe was just the climax, but all the general elections that we have had, the same thing is happening. The same questions are carried forward, but you are not changing. You have never shown Ugandans that you are capable of handling the elections as police. To the extent that your weakness are now affecting the commission that had started building a foundation. I saw electoral commission in disbelief of what was happening. Their hands were tied, and yet the law is clear that police can provide security. But we reached an extent where even I could actually hide behind an electoral commission supervisor. And he was also scared. Even the polling constable was also scared. Because I tried to hold on to him and said, Madam, you know?
Okay.
So let us address the issues that are being raised. If we don't handle these matters, they will escalate. To the guy, to the NUP guy,
Quickly,
Marvin,
Karina.
it's a quick one. When we are all excited about the guard, in the current village election, do you know what happened to the guard? They were busy organizing themselves to actually go and do whatever they wanted to do or to protect their vote. They missed out on the time. So when you missed out on the time of participating in that election, you started causing chaos. So most of you would not know where the chaos comes from, but you should take note of that. That when you find that the time is 9 for that election, it was 9 a.m. When by the time you organize yourselves, you reach that polling station where you want to protect the vote. When time has what passed, and you begin saying, no, we are supposed to have to vote. Let me just do one sorry, on voter education, how serious it is. Julius, you might think that these people are actually crying for voter education without a cause. It is serious. Right now, people are confused whether I am going to use an expired national ID, present it at the polling station, or I am not going to vote because my national ID has expired. So the information is not even out there. People do not know what they are going to do. And not from the local people, from the middle class income, from the literates. They are asking, well, how are we going to vote? The lines at NIRA are long. I cannot afford to go and actually line up.
Okay. I gave Farida a bit more time because she's accredited. She's the only person that is accredited inside here.
So now Job
finally, Sarah.
is discriminating against us. Thank you so much. Actually, when Farida was speaking, I was like, okay, the only person with the actual gari that the government is worried about is the CDF. Is the one with the gari you are talking about. Other people don't have what you are referring to. The CDF has. No, the CDF has. The CDF has the gari you are referring to. He showed in Kawempe that he has the gari. So the question, the assurance we need as citizens is how you are going to prevent the arrogance and impunity of the CDF with his gari. Minus that, if you are not ready, don't organize elections for Ugandans to die. If you are not ready, you need to tell us the truth. If you are not ready, you postpone these elections. Because elections are now a trap for killing citizens. So I follow to that, Yafande Kuraije. I wanted to ask, the constitution is very clear in Article 212. The police can invite the army or work with other security agencies. And it specifies, especially in situations of disaster and emergency. I want to ask you, do you regard elections as a disaster? And did you invite the army in Kawempe? And what was the disaster? Them at the border during this election. Don't bring them to the people.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Sarah also got a bit more time for obvious reasons. Now, Judy, I'm going to ask for your indulgence. I've overshot my time. How much time can you give me for these people to respond? 10 minutes, 2 minutes each. The 2 minutes are mine, okay? Sassy, with you first. 2 minutes, please.
Sorry, what do you need me to do?
No, okay, just
wind up.
Yeah, it's really. No, okay, just
wind up.
Yeah, it's really to wrap up. Yeah, to wrap up. Yeah. In case you want to respond to anything, you can respond.
Yeah, first of all, I want to respond to the only accredited person we have in this room. First of all, I think it's a misrepresentation, using one example, I don't know from where, to paint a picture of what the girls do everywhere. And even that same incident, assuming it happened at all, also from what I know, must certainly have had other underpinnings. What happened in the youth elections all over the country, we took a complaint to Comrade Julius and the Electoral Commission. candidates had 10 days to go for nominations. Day one, presiding officer would be sick. Day two, comes late, goes for lunch, never returns. Day three, sorry, the register, we cannot see you, but come back tomorrow. Long story short, day 10, because someone has hope till the 10th day. Day 10, someone just tells them point blank, we're not nominating anyone from NUP. These things happened across the country. They didn't just happen in Mukono. They happened in Kawempe, everywhere. They happened in Masaka, they happened in northern Uganda, everywhere. If you really, really want the data, we have it. We took the complaint to the EC. You know what the EC did? Nothing. So that's one. Number two, I think in winding up, I really don't even think I have any recommendations for the current establishment, be it the regime, the Uganda police, the military, the electoral commission. So what I can only speak to is the post-Museveni, because the current, the pre-post-Museveni, what we've seen in the past is going to keep happening. It doesn't matter what laws are enacted. It doesn't matter what the police says. Like, as Dr. Sarah has said, a CDF takes himself as the law. And everyone must do his bidding. He was on Twitter saying, if I command the Uganda police, I command you PDF. Things which are debatable. How does the CDF now say, I have overall control over the police? But we really know, at the end of the day, it's just, beyond that. At the end of the day, we have a deep-seated culture of impunity among these agencies. And no matter how much you wax lyrical about what needs to be changed, what they are going to do, they do not have the goodwill to do it. They know what needs to be done, they just don't do it. So I'm going to speak to a post-Museveni Uganda. I think at the end of the day, once Mr. Museveni leaves us alone, we have to come together as citizens and discuss the kind of country we want to live in. And I guess we also put in place some lines that must not be crossed.
Okay, thank you so much, Sasi. Clap for him properly if you want to clap. You will not get another opportunity, so, okay. Mr. Clyde?
Yeah, thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, the Kawempe issue is being investigated, and at the highest level, by the way. Leave alone my level. That matter is being investigated. And at the highest level, you take it at the
Let's allow Mr. Clyde
at the highest level. And what I can assure you is that we learned a lot from that election. Then on the Chigari, and if my brother can be sincere.
Actually, Mr. Clyde, hold it. Let's clap for that. They learned a lot from that election. So guys, surely.
And it is
and those lessons are informing the next election.
And it is being investigated seriously.
And it's being investigated. Okay, go on.
I'm saying if my brother can be sincere,
Yeah.
the guy, the terminology didn't even come from them. The terminology was there. And those who were using it, those people, what they were doing, very well. It shows how they would rob people of their phones, of their money. So now you carried the same name, which had already a bad name, and you are using it. Equally, don't think yours are going to be that innocent. These people who beat our former director, they were putting on your t-shirt. So, if that's the Chigari, those are all goons, and we must all discourage. I like my sister.
Let's have one meeting here.
What my sister was suggesting, if that one can be around, I don't know even people who are owning a girl, if they have the list of their members. They don't. Their contacts, they don't. So if they can be accredited as she's suggesting, then well, that will be okay. So that we know people we are dealing with. Okay. But as my brother from South Sudan said, it will start tomorrow at the end of the day. These boys are deadly. They are very fast. They can enter a room here within no minute. No one has a phone. So let us not discuss. Let us not. My sister from Mukono, the CDF, will handle him. We'll bring him in order. He's asking. You can sue him as an individual. He's not above the law. So the law will bring him to order.
Okay. Mr. Klaje, 30 seconds.
Then my sister Farid, we are going to manage these elections. I can assure you we are going to manage, and we've managed it before. We've managed it before. Do you know why they say free and fair, not free and excellent? There are small things. There are small things that will always come. But on average, I can assure you, we shall manage these elections. We shall manage these elections with or without the army. Madam Sir, army, not that emergency doesn't mean the incident alone. Where intelligence has information that there is likely to be a dangerous incident in an area, let it be during elections or outside elections. You can call part of these qualities, but to give a hand, not take charge, as Farida was saying. Where that judge takes over and police were watching, it's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed. If it was like that, that was wrong, and I think the investigation will bring it out. It's not supposed to be like that. Police, we are supposed to be in charge, and let us keep engaging. Though we are engaging here, even my brother, when you are invited, please come. let us where things are not moving on well.
Thank you, Mr. Clyde.
But
Let's
things
clap for him.
are not doing well. Thank you so
Let's clap
much.
for him. Okay, yes, Julius.
I think from the Electoral Commission on Kawempe, if anything that we saw don't want to see anywhere in our electoral process, anywhere across the country, and we because the election is about the people. What we saw that we did not like, that didn't give pride to our processes, that did not add value to the integrity of the electoral process, we should all collectively say, this is not what we want to see in our elections. And if we are collective in saying no to the things that we saw that did not please or were inconsistent with the law, then we can actually speak collectively and say, we don't want to see them, and we should be able to therefore, going to the 2026 election, in which we are already, we should be able to have better elections. Every election should inform the successive one to get better. And that's where I want to go.
Julius, if I may interrupt you a bit, I really like what you've just said now. And my question is, so how do we start on that? Because it's one thing to talk about it, it's another to take it into action. Sarah has proposed the code of conduct for starters, which I think is a phenomenal idea.
Already, the first one is that we have been engaging. And in fact, you know that after the first two incidents in Kawempe, I will speak about this. After the first two incidents, after the nomination of Narukora, Honorable Narukora, and the incidents around it, and the incident that was at Kavule, the commission met the police, whom we deal with because they are the only ones we know. The Electoral Commission knows police, and how police handles the rest of the operational matters, they know how to do it. Because we are not in that business. We don't have the competence of gathering intelligence, analyzing it, and determining what force, in what capacity, in what numbers they do. But after those incidents, the commission met the commanders. And you know that after those two incidents, what followed subsequently until the 13th of March was a peaceful, generally peaceful environment until the events that happened that evening. Now, it means dialogue works. Conversations can bring results. We should not tire. We should not tire from doing good and demanding the best for our country. Because it shows that it is possible. Let us look towards the possibilities of what is possible within an electoral process. And I believe, so that's the first one. But the second is that the engagements have continued, and the chairperson of the commission told me to tell you that the commission intends to meet even the defense forces, because they have been brought in conversations. It is important that they too know, if they are brought in, not by us, but by police, how should they conduct themselves? I think we all need guidelines and code of conduct to make sure that the people of Uganda can continue to have trust in our electoral process. And you may not see headlines, we may not see pronouncements. What we need are results from these engagements. Sometimes grandstanding may not bring results. Most of the results that we get to see are behind the scenes conversations. So let us use all the means. Those who can speak, let them speak. Those who can engage, let them engage, with the goal of ensuring that we have free, fair, credible, and transparent elections in our country. Okay. I want to speak to Mr. Ochenyo.
Finally.
Internal party democracy is very, very, very important, because often the issues that are unresolved within the political parties spill over into our general elections. So if you have party primaries that are marred by all sorts of issues, you will surely see them reflected in the general election. So there are many provisions in the Code of Conduct for political parties under the Political Parties and Organizations Act that you subscribe to, including addressing some of the internal party democracy issues in your elections. I don't have the specifics, but I believe that that is not only an issue that has to do with the UPC. Even most of the other political parties have their issues. They need to clean their processes. They need to have, because if you don't practice democracy within your political party, you can't demand it from anywhere. You cannot give what you don't have. So we must begin by addressing our own inadequacies and perfect our own internal party processes to make sure that then what comes into the general elections is consistent with what we actually believe in. And finally, first of all, I'm happy that somebody bailed me out, that at least there's somebody. I know there are others who don't want to announce here that they have been accredited, and I'm not going to ask you to announce, but I know that there are organizations that have been accredited, and they are working. Even those which are not accredited, as I said, these elections will come and go. This country will remain. We need to remain engaged and doing the right thing, training our people, educating our people at all levels, so that we don't buy the umbrella when it has just started raining. We must buy it early. And that is what civic and voter education should do, ahead of the general elections, ahead of the roadmap, so that when the people get into the roadmap activities, they already know what they need to do.
Thank you so much, Julius. Let's clap for him. Clap properly, because this is the last chance you have to clap for him today. Perry, finally 2 minutes.
Okay, just 2 minutes. Three things. As someone who has observed elections over time, I think it's important for us to strive to meet the international standards. And those standards are spelled out in our laws, because that's one way of giving confidence to the population, that if there are rules, let people follow them. Second, let's hold people accountable. If you're an electoral commission official who decides you're not going to do the right thing at the polling stations, you must be held accountable. If you're an agent, if you're an observer, anyone who abuses the law should be held accountable. That's one of the ways in which you build confidence. There was a question about us preparing citizens to deal with internet shutdown. You know what shocks me about Uganda is we plan for the worst, because media access and freedom of expression is so fundamental to an election. So for me, the question should be, why should government continue to think it is normal to shut the internet down during an election? And I think we must hold them to task so that it does not happen, because it's not normal. You cannot have an election where you don't have internet. What we must focus on is ensuring that those who abuse it, face the law. But if citizens are using this platform to get information, to ensure that they are, informed about what's going on, to communicate, I don't think it should be an issue. Lastly, I think there is need for dialogue. I hear what Marvin is saying in terms of how they feel. And I know that part of how you start dealing with an issue is making people feel that they're being listened to. And to be listened to, people need to see actions, that you're applying the law similarly for anyone who is errant. So the dialogue, I think, must continue, but the actions on the grievances across the board must continue. I know colleagues in the NRM who their election has, like this lining up is not even an international standard. The standard is secret ballot, you know. So you find many of them saying, but we are going into this election. They are lamenting, but they don't even know where to lament. Because when they come to the population is saying you're then in power. But the standard, and that's why I've emphasized, if we could only follow the standards and commit to doing the right thing, each officer, each Ugandan saying, this is my role, I will play it because this country belongs to all of us, I think would make a headway. Thank you.
Okay, let us clap for Perry. Let's clap properly for Perry. And let's clap once again for the entire panel. And of course, you clap for me. Okay, I know, of course, for those of you. Please. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I know for those of you that didn't have the opportunity to thank us before making your submission, you have the opportunity to say thank you. You can all say thank you so much, CG. Thank you so much, the panelists. We can take our seats, and then I hand over to Judith.
Let's clap for them as they make their way to their seats. Thank you very much. And I think it was a smart decision actually to merge these two sessions. So now we go to the last session. Should have been our second, but it is now our last. The question of political finance. You want to? So, Mr. Henry Muguzi, the Executive Director for the Alliance for Finance Monitoring, will be talking about political finance as the next frontier of democratic reform in Uganda, rethinking the role of money in politics ahead of the 2026 general elections. Of course, he's going to give us a snapshot or a picture of what the landscape of political and campaign financing looks like, the sources of campaign finance, and how this impacts our democracy and governance, as well as aspects of legal and the regulatory framework, and some proposed reforms or solutions. But after him, we will of course have our panel discussion, but we're going to make it really, really brief. My panelists, one of them is still outside, Honorable Brandon Kintu, but he was here, he stepped out briefly. I'm in touch with him, he says he'll be joining us shortly. But also Honorable Leandro Komakech is with us, so we shall definitely start with him after Henry Muguzi's speech. Henry, you're most welcome. You have 15 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will come back from that very exhilarating session. We are now switching lanes and turning to matters money. Now I'm trying to start the stopwatch. Okay. So what I'm going to share with you is a paper that we are developing at the Alliance for Finance Monitoring, ACFIM. And the title of it is Political Finance as the Next Frontier of Democratic Reform in Uganda. And we are trying to rethink the role of money in politics ahead of the 2026 general elections. And as you know, Uganda is edging closer to its next election, I think the second week of January. But as we are doing that, the democratic horizon is darkened by an intensifying storm. And this storm is the pervasive, corrosive influence of money in politics. Political parties are in high gear, conducting primaries, while aspiring candidates are already flooding communities with cash and goods. Some goods are tangible, others are community goods, such as opening up of feeder roads. The Electoral Commission and civil society The Electoral Commission and Civil Society, led by by ACFIM, have flagged commercialization of politics as one of the challenges that are mitigating against, the integrity of elections in Uganda. If you look at the reports submitted to Parliament in 2016-2021, the Electoral Commission has consistently flagged it as a formidable threat to Uganda's fragile democracy. So this paper is therefore exploring the nexus between money and politics in Uganda, and argues that political finance reform is the most urgent and perhaps also transformative frontier of democratic reform today. So why are we saying that political finance, transparency for reform should be the mission critical for the democratic future of Uganda? And I want to argue that also of Africa in general. Here are the core arguments we are putting forth. Number one, as Uganda's democracy matures, you remember we just returned to multi-party democratic dispensation. Money, not just the vote, is shaping political outcomes. In the monitoring we did in 2021, in 87% of the cases, the candidate that spent over and above the rest went on to be the declared winner of that election. From candidate selection to policy capture, unregulated political finance is not distorting the democratic process. And therefore, to deepen reforms, we must all not only follow the money, but also deliberate over what interventions we can make. The second argument is that just as the frontier of capitalism and public finance strategies were essential in earlier democratic reforms, political finance now defines the rules. It decides who gets to play, but also on whose behalf. The third argument is that money is shifting from visible electioneering to behind the scenes influence. Without transparency and oversight, electoral outcomes in this coming election are going to be, just like they have been over the years, bought with impunity. We have seen candidates buying wins, electoral victories, and they've continued to do so with impunity. So why we argue, therefore, that political finance should be the next reform frontier of democratic reform is based on these arguments. Number one, there's the argument of unregulated money in politics, undermining democratic integrity. And if you look around, our electoral system lacks meaningful oversight on political funding. And that lack of meaningful oversight enables clientelism, corruption, and undue influence. If you look at what we have in the laws, you have bits and pieces scattered in the different legislative vehicles. The Political Parties and Organizations Act requires political parties to submit and declare their returns, annual returns, including audit reports. And the Electoral Commission, upon receipt of these returns, is enjoined to publish in the National Gazette that these documents have been received, and therefore they are free. The public is free to come and view them. But you see, we have written, and many others have written, on more than 10 instances requesting to access this information, and the information cannot be accessed. And therefore that has created a cloud of darkness. And we are arguing that without that transparency, evils such as corruption, clientelism, continue to blossom and to thrive. Number two, we are saying that we who follow the money in politics and public institutions are stressing that without strong political finance regulations and corruption efforts that Uganda and the president has committed to, will remain feeble. The second one, argument, is that the lack of political finance transparency is undermining public trust and accountability. So whereas political parties and organizations act enjoins political parties to submit those returns, as I said, we cannot access them. Okay? And the lack of those, you know, of that information creates opacity that allows everything dark to happen. Now, you recall that there was a political party that split on the allegation of receipt of money they called dark and dirty. There are no legal provisions requiring political parties and candidates, for example, to disclose the sources of their money, but also the amounts that they have received, including how much they have budgeted. And if you look at jurisdictions where there's been a semblance of controlling the vice of commercialized politics, there are provisions that require organizations, political parties and organizations, but also candidates to disclose the sources of this money. And we want to argue that most of this money is coming from suspicious sources, and therefore the candidates and political parties and their agents who use it have the leverage to just throw it around in a manner that is adulterating the integrity of our elections. Number three, we are saying that political finance reform is a core pillar of the global anti-corruption standards. If you review the UN Convention Against Corruption, but also the African Union Convention for combating and preventing corruption, those instruments require that nations disclose, nations put in place frameworks that would provide for disclosure of sources of political finance. If it is political parties, they should be able to tell us where they're getting the money. Today, if you asked where the political party leaderships are getting monies to finance those political parties, you cannot seem to get the answers. Even the members on the governing organs of those political parties will not tell you for certain where their money is coming from, and this is creating a situation of darkness that allows all manner of dirty money to thrive. Okay? So the scope here is the scope. Let me point to the scope and scale of the problem. Now, you know that our Uganda's electoral landscape has become increasingly monetized, and much of the money that is being used is dark. Dark means we don't know where it is coming from. Its sources are not disclosed. Its paths are not traceable. You cannot tell for certain how the candidate or political party used the money. We are estimating that more than half of the money that is being used in the political arena, including election campaigns, is coming from illicit sources, is money that you can call proceeds of predicate financial crimes, such as corruption and other criminal networks. Okay, such inflows of money that is not known, whose source is not known, erodes public trust, distorts political competition, and threatens national security. Because you know, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So the growing normalization, for example, and this is a concern, the normalization of vote buying is symptomatic of a deeper structural issue. In the country we are living in, vote buying seems to have been normalized. The electorate, as we speak now, are expecting to be
to receive money and gifts of all kind. And at the center of this receiving are the religious leaders in some cases who are serving as brokers, because they are the ones who are inviting candidates and then creating these fundraising events, and then they get the money they solicit the money from the candidates, and once the money is received, then they are able to endorse those candidates at the detriment of those candidates that are not well, do not have access. So this dynamic not only undermines accountability, but also breeds a winner-take-all mentality that fuels electoral violence. If you speak to the Electoral Commission, they'll tell you that one of the things they have observed over the years is that because elections are too expensive and people spend through the nose, those who spend it and those who provide the money expect only one result, and that result must be a win. But yet, it is the very nature of elections that they must either be won or lost. Now, if we're in a situation where the candidate cannot entertain a loss as an outcome, as a legitimate outcome of the election, then, violence breaks, because they must win at all costs, including bribing the electoral officials. I spoke about the weaknesses in the regulatory framework we have, that we do not have laws that cover the ground properly. The Political Parties and Organizations Act has its own shortcomings. The Presidential Elections Act would provide for would provide for misuse of state resources, but also voter bribery. But beyond that, you don't hear anything else, and these are not adequate. The Parliamentary Elections Act also only provides for, voter bribery. So this does not cover the ground. Does not cover the ground properly. So in terms of legislation, these are the pillars we would have seen, would want to see in a legislation worth the name. And so I mentioned them. We highlight four. The first one, we would want to have a regulatory framework that provides for robust disclosure of the monies political parties use, of the monies candidates use, both for routine running, day-to-day running, but also for election campaigns. Number two, we should want to see limits imposed. There should be provisions that put a cap on how much you can spend on a particular electoral position. The idea is to ensure that a situation where someone comes and bans 3 billion on a parliamentary election, dwarfing those that can only raise up to 300 million, should be avoided in order to level the playing field. Number three, there should be bans. There should be monies that are not allowed to come into the country to finance either political parties or election campaigns. Some of it should be, we are concerned about monies that come from companies that are already contracted with government. Because you see, if you are CCC from China and you've been given a contract to work to do the road on Jinja Road Expressway, and then the election comes, like now, and then you are bankrolling the party in power, and the party in power wins, that means that you've done that for quid pro quo reasons. Chances are that you're going to use that to leverage first of all, the contract you're working on, but also the subsequent procurement process. No wonder, in many cases, such companies would be the ones taking all the government contracts. And this happens at all levels, whether it be ministerial or local government. So the bans should be there. And lastly, reporting requirements. There should be requirements that enjoin political parties and candidates to come back within 90 days probably to report on how much they spent and what they spent it on. These four pillars are just an attempt to put in place guardrails to ensure that money is regulated, because money is sweet. Everybody wants money. Politics needs money, but you cannot leave this unregulated. Regulations must be there. So the role of civil society and the media in this is going to be critical. So in the face of institutional inertia, civil society organizations have to step up through real-time tackling of campaign expenditures, political party, incomes and expenditures, but also public awareness that citizens get to understand that they're actually complicit in a game that has compromised the quality of the legislative houses at parliamentary level, but also at district local government level, maybe also at sub-county level, by making sure that they are sending their incompetent men and women on grounds that they have paid them. However, these efforts must be complemented by investigative journalism, meaning we cannot work independent of the media. So the role of the media is going to be critical in investigating, but also the use of digital transparency tools and civic education. Civic education for which we have to be, I understand, we have to seek accreditation. One thing I think is contestable. We have a few recommendations. I'm coming to the end. A few recommendations we make. Number one is legislative overhaul. We need a comprehensive, robust political finance law. I know that the 10th Parliament had recommended that the Ministry of Justice should develop a comprehensive campaign finance law. But they did that recommendation came at the tail end of their term. And when the 11th Parliament came into office, they chose not to carry forward any of the businesses left over by the previous Parliament. But I think the time has come to resurrect this. We need to strengthen oversight. The Electoral Commission, which we have argued is being overburdened by being the political finance regulator, but also at the same time they are the political party registrar, but at the same time they are also the electoral management body. These three roles, managing, organizing and conducting elections as EMB, and then being political party registrar, and then being the political finance regulator, these get to be compromised. In other countries, the role of political party registrar is housed in a different agency, and the role of political finance regulator in a different agency, because the Electoral Commission does not have the manpower, the personnel, let alone the skills needed to exercise oversight over political finance. Public financing of political parties is another recommendation we make. We think this should be widened to cover all the political parties that have been registered. But however, there should also be guardrails to ensure that protects this money from being abused. But the fact that political parties, we have all agreed that political parties shall be the agencies that perform the role of identifying and grooming leaders whom they present to us upon which to cast our ballot is a public good. And because they perform that public good, they should be entitled to public funding. But that public funding needs to be well regulated. There must be clear guidelines on accounting for that money so that it can be prevented and insulated from abuse. Transparency and digital reporting is another one. We would require entities such as the Electoral Commission. We do not know why the returns submitted by political parties cannot be posted on the online, so that those of us and other colleagues that want to monitor them can easily access them, because we are talking about public enterprises. If an entity, a private entity, can publish their bank balance sheets in the newspapers, what about public money? And lastly is voter education. We need to do a lot of work on the voter to make sure that the electorate wisens up and rises over and above. But in conclusion, Uganda, as we see it, is standing at crossroads. Without urgent reform, the 2026 general elections risk becoming another cash-drenched chariot where money drowns out merit and the will of the people is bought. So finance reform is not a technical footnote. It is the heartbeat of a democratic renewal. It it is time to take bold steps to reclaim Uganda's democracy from the grip of illicit money and chart a new path toward accountable, people-centered governance. I have a few takeaways, just one, a couple of sentences. Number one, for purposes of takeaway, we think that political finance is no longer a niche detail. It is the linchpin for deepening democratic rule in this country. So strong financial oversight turns elections from opaque transactions into accountable processes. If you heard the statements made by the president on budget day, these statements are resonating with what he says. So if all of us citizens want durable change, the next frontier isn't just election day, but it is the hidden funding behind the curtain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henry. I think I would also invite you to sit with us here, as I also invite Honorable Leandro Komakech to come and join us. So we have this plenary, very briefly. Honorable Brandon tells me he's stuck in very bad traffic jam, not too far away from here. So if he can walk, he could be walking in any minute from now, but if he doesn't, we shall still proceed regardless. All right, thank you. So Honorable Leandro, of course, I would like you to respond or react very quickly to Henry Muguzi's presentation or submission on campaign financing. Is it, we understand this is quite a problem, political financing. The challenge is you are aspiring to return to parliament. Perhaps you could just start by sharing with us your experience. Because when it comes to the question of political financing, there's certainly an element of demand and supply. There has to be a demand somewhere. And then the question of the supply is what is, I think, eluding Henry and a lot of actors who are trying to follow the money. Let me just give you this microphone.
Excuse me, I've been oversitting. I drove from Gulu this morning and I continue to sit the whole day. So allow me to stand. Which one? Henry is my friend. We last met at a very good conference at a normal hotel on the issues of still election. So we took the initiative with Christopher Kitty to drive from Gulu this morning to come and attend this meeting, and then we drive back to Gulu. So that shows you the
level of commitment. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Commitment. And Chris is just recovering from a broken leg. So this is a sacrifice for democracy. Now, my name is Leandro Komakech. I'm currently a visiting fellow at the London School of Political Science, London. So I have so many hats. I'll speak both as a politician, a recovering politician, and also a recovering scholar. So I will be mixing policy issues with the general Ugandan governance challenges. And I pick quickly on but I will premise myself, especially on recommendation, policy recommendation on the issues of election finance. Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I can see many faces that I know, but I may not have said hi to you, but I know we shall get time for tea and talk, especially with Kiana, who is claiming leadership from Uganda People's Congress. Yes, he was denied his position. Now, mine is straight, moderator. The issues that my colleague raised are very fundamental, especially what I call the LCM, the lowest common multiple that helps us to ensure that governance is stable. Electoral Commission is a midwife, and we expect that to be a midwife, you must be very impartial to ensure that any child being born does not have a stillborn, but get to be born normally. And that is the responsibility of my brother Julius. Now, in Uganda, since the election was introduced, I think it was by coincidence. We have not had a very what we call deliberate democratic processes that should help this country be governed very fairly. It has only been with the social movements that ended up in the formation of parties, and then the British were here 70 years, they never organized anything. They just waited to leave without any of these processes. So what we do is just, we are struggling. It is a state that is struggling among other states in Africa to be what they should be. So when you read the constitution, the latest of 95, it's about we aware of our history. And I think if you talk about aware of our history, it should tell us a lot. What is our history? Our history has been violence dominated. That is it. If you look at many Ugandans that have died because of politics, there's so many. And I know many of you are affected. And if you look at the Bataka movement, the formation of UNC, all those were struggles of social movement, the Democratic Party formation. It was about injustice of the teachers. You know, the Catholic Guild of Northern Ugandan teachers was at the credible formation of this thing that now is called the Democratic Party. And many others. The National Resistance Movement was a result of violence. They said, I hope you know a gentleman called Natuli. In the 1980 election, I know Othiono will disagree with me, but that is what is recorded, is that there were issues of election discrepancy, still election, 1980 election. And through the tapping of communication between Nyerere and chairman of Electoral Commission, Mwanga, it was discovered there was something wrong. And eventually, Museveni said, in Kabale, if election is rigged, I'll go to the bush. That was his last rally he made in Kabale town in 1980. Now, eventually, Naduli tells the people that I have a Lusuku. A Lusuku in Luganda is about a small plantation of bananas. He invited Museveni to a Lusuku in a sub-county called Makulubita. And that is where the NRA launched their armed struggle on election rigging. So you can see all these are dominated with challenges. But let's leave that. Let's come to what is it about election financing, political financing? What is it? Why is it that when you go for election, everything's about money? The first parliament of 1962, or even in the Native Council, it was about value-driven issues. You know, a gentleman called Inachole, our first MP was called, what was his name, Chris? The first Achole MP in the Native Council in Entebbe, Matia Lamotte, was called Matia Lamotte. He came, he didn't know English, but he was voted to come and represent the entire Achole region. He came and he had to come with an interpreter who was an English teacher to be interpreting to the British and the other Indian dominated council of what he meant or what he wanted to represent. And he ended up being one of the best legislators because it was issue driven. The community said, you go. It was not about the money. It was about the issues. What are the issues of the community? Now, in Uganda today, there's an emerging behavior that if you sing very well, you can represent community issues better than someone who doesn't sing. And so many things. And now we're in Gulu there consulting, and people come and say, others say, how do you see us? There's a new emerging language of support or finance, how do you see us? Now, if you cannot interpret those questions, you lose election. You have talked so well. You have talked so well. How do you leave us? How do you leave us? These are voters. Are you going to leave us? Now, poverty is one of the greatest challenges in this country that is being manipulated on the issues of political finance. Poverty. Poverty has become an asset to some of our leaders that use them appropriately at particular times. And therefore, that is why I said, based on that, I'll just summarize, because of time, moderator. I'll just say, because I know all of us know the problems. All of us here, you have heard how we have spoken the whole day. I'll just summarize these in a small format, which I call policy recommendations on the commercialization of politics in Uganda. And I premised my argument in a thesis that I called the commercialization of elections in Uganda, where electoral outcomes are influenced more by financial capacity other than by policies or leadership qualities. And this has undermined our democratic integrity, it has distorted political computation and deepened corruption. So these are the followings that I recommend. I don't want to talk about problems anymore. One, enforce campaign finance regulations. And this should be by establishing and implementing clear ceilings on campaign spending, mandating public disclosure of all campaign donations and expenditures. Three, by empowering the Electoral Commission and the Inspectorate of Government to audit and sanction violations. So two, at the broader level, expanding and reforming public financing of political parties. Now here, I look at increasing equitable public funding for political parties during elections. It should not just be because NRM is bigger than the rest, therefore you give the bigger chunk to them. We have had occasions where the IPOD agreed on the criteria of distribution of funding. I think we need to review the IPOD framework to allow parties that genuinely are formed to run this country to be empowered. But instead we find that if you only give NRM 80% and then you leave the rest, then are you empowering the growth of democracy in this country? No. So we should have deliberate interest in all those who think that they are democratic seeking organizations to be empowered to run for political offices based on what they stand for. And then of course, it is also important under these to ensure that the funding should be based on performance criteria such as transparency and gender inclusion. So this should be my recommendation. And then three is about strengthening enforcement institutions. Here I look at enhancing the capacity of Electoral Commission, IGG, and DPP. And then two, under that, is about creating a special electoral offenses court. We have had many ways of creating courts. Here, if we could have a special offenses, a special electoral offenses court for timely resolutions of cases. You have had many cases of election dragging from magistrate through to Supreme Court. There are those who have ways of hanging in Parliament by using all these technicalities until the next election. So all these are there. So we need to bring an end to such kind of approaches by having a special electoral court. And then promoting civic education and voter awareness. Here I think we have all talked about it. We need to launch a nationwide civic education campaign, inform voters about the long-term consequences of vote buying, and encourage a culture of issue-based voting. So many do not believe about issue-based voting. And if you go with that kind of approach these days, in many parts of this country, they just ask you what is wrong with this person. You know, I've seen in Gulu of recent, they are distributing gomasis. And then I asked the women, were you naked before you were given these gomasis? You know? And these gomasis are low quality gomasis of 15,000 shillings. Now, so you wonder, should this be the mode of how you should look like as a leader? And then regulating also campaign contributions. I think we need to have a framework on how we regulate campaign contributions by setting limits. And on individuals and corporate donations, prohibit anonymous and foreign contributions, and creating public contributions disclosure portals. This would help a lot in transparency. You have seen in the United States, how one donor can influence the entire country. You know the role that Musk, Elon played in a recent campaign, where he would go for every opportunity, he would say, I have $1 million here for donation. Anyone who wins this, I will give now. And he kept giving $1 million in many spaces, the whole country. So we have to be very careful on how we do these processes. And then, of course, I think the law should look at penalizing vote buying and vote selling. It should not just be on one side. We should have a law that looks at both. If you buy votes, you must be penalized. If you sell votes, you must be penalized. But here you have seen how people have been actually votes. Our politics has been turned into a commodity market. For those who know this, everything runs on commodity. If you do not have it, you are useless in politics. So many good, even the law that allows many good people to come to politics has chased away many good politicians. They tell you that if you're a civil servant, you must resign. If you lose election, don't come back to any government service. All this should be, and we are losing many good people, because when they lose, they go forever. But if the law would allow that, it is time for election, let's go. If you lose, and the law should allow you to come back if you lose. But now they say if you lose, continue going. Now we lose good people who should be serving as well in the legislative arena. And then, of course, strengthening our internal democracy in political parties. I think this should be a deliberate interest by government and also by the laws that we make. Should we have a review on how our internal democracy should be? Because I've seen in many of our political parties, if you go for delegate conferences, it is like the world is coming to an end. You know? If you go for primaries, it is now, for those who are monitoring the current primary processes, there are those who have to buy off the primary. They have to buy it. You put 400 million, 500 million. Those organizers say, if you don't give me 100 million, go and deposit it in my land there. You may not go through the primary. So people are doing everything, because politics is the only space where now people are getting profits. I don't know why. And then we have the issue of collaboration with religious and traditional leaders. I don't know how the law can be made in such a way that electoral commission should work alongside some of these institutions to rebuild our morality. I see the church these days is full with Muslim faithful, Christian faithful, but their interest is to go and adulterate the altar with their things. But this is not being done in good faith. But should it not be that during this period, these funny ways of giving donation to churches should also be monitored? But also religious leaders should take responsibility on educating the faithfuls on their roles as Christians, as Muslim faithfuls, on what to do to get good leaders for the country. And then, the two last things. And then promoting digital campaigns and electoral governance. I think this is an area where we need to. I understand Chris said there's something coming soon and I think Council Sarah should tie up and see how do we explore more on the issues of digital campaigning and electoral governance, because we must develop a new, because they always say the election is free, fair, and transparent. Can we include, as we were driving this morning, we said it should be verifiable as part of a new component of tightening transparency. Election is free, fair, and verifiable. Now, to be verifiable means we need to check the technology that is producing these results. Is it true? It can be verifiable, or it is completely opaque, as you said. And then lastly, is about the constitutional and legal reform. I think we all agree on this, that we need a very deepened constitutional and legal reforms on issues of election. Uganda will never be the same if we play around with the way we are playing on issues of governance. Otherwise, we shall just be a passing cloud. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Honorable Leandro. I had some questions, but I think I should not be the one to ask if you have any questions or any comments to make, and then we just wind up. Just very quickly. And then Joseph and Chris.
Mine would just be to, just on the political parties fund, it says 95% is distributed proportional based on the total number of votes secured by each party in the preceding election. So on the face of it, this just looks like it's okay to give 95% to the person that won. But if the last party that won the election is getting 95% of the resources coming into the next election, they are going to win again. It is just math. Eh? Then, so what exactly is I've not yet read the iPod, that framework on what they think should be the perfect standard for distribution of those resources. But if we are going by an Article 21 standard, that money should be distributed equally to each political party so that they all have a chance. You can, it's folly to think that you give more. In fact, actually, if you give more to the person that won, it is to the detriment of those that lost, because they are coming into the election with less. So for me, I think that should be the standard, that each person should get an equal amount of that fund, really, as a political party. Then the other thing that I wanted to share is still there is also a provision that says if you don't secure 5% of the total number of votes in the preceding election, you will not even get a portion of that fund. So it is a losing game mirrored in the law. So you've not gotten 5%, the winners have gotten money, but you're not getting. So aren't you a political party in the country? So these are all reforms. Maybe the other one that I wanted to share is ACMIS had shared for that, you know, if money is coming into the country, being exported into the country, let's have standards for donation. That if you're getting a donation as a political party, disclose your donors, but at the same time, let your donors sign a standard form. Yeah? I'm signing. These are my interests. Do you have interest? Do you not have interest? I agree that ceilings would greatly help. I used to read, I think this Matters Day or the previous Matters Day, I don't know if you saw one religious leader who asked for a car. So I don't know in what capacity the Fountain of Honor gives out cars and whose resources those are. Are they coming from the party? Are they coming from, where are those pockets of money of 400 million coming? Someone goes to a school, of course now this is maybe a minister who is reading a speech, and they're reading a speech and we are donating 400 million to this school. Those pockets of money.
Thank you.
So those are my
Thanks,
thoughts.
Omega. Give it to Chris. But also, Henry and Leandro, I'd also, tied to what Omega is saying, I'd also like to hear your thoughts clearly on how this political financing drives political patronage networks and how they in turn serve to actually disadvantage those who are already at a disadvantage.
Now, interestingly, mine is a mini contradiction onto this. I have very strong views on this. I've said it several times, Leander and Henry. My view is that a future UPC government would review this public funding to political parties. I believe, as Leander said, that the political party, whether of a name should be able to mobilize, organize, and focus on issues. We need to deal with the other mitigating factors that have brought money into politics, because once upon a time, money was not the issue. In fact, 1980 general elections, I was there. As a first-time voter, I did not see money. Today, as I was coming in here, I was delighted to have met the last Mr. Speaker, Francis Buttigieg. I keep on referring to him. Fantastic gentleman. It was a delight. These guys are living experiences that politics without money, but politics on issues is possible. My view is that these are monies which are being pulled from the public purses instead of investing in education, investing in health, investing in the key issues that compel people to go through the process of demanding for these advance payments plus. You know, we should, instead of investing in that, we are giving political parties and political party leaders, some of whom, as has been suggesting, are possibly sometimes short of being suspect. We should review that. I think we are doubly punishing the poorest of the poor. Political party funding should be reviewed.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. Yes. One thing, the logic behind public funding, which is an ADF, which is an opponent of the Ugandan state, and get those billions, which I'm sure pirates on the Indian Ocean are very willing to give those dollars, and then come and cause conflict in society. So the first logic is that to have an independent democracy, you must have public financing of political parties, but also making political institutions accountable to the people. Which is, so that is it. So when you look at the Political Parties Organization Act, I don't know, the last time I read it was 10 years ago, but around 72, section 72 there about limits political parties from getting foreign funding. And remember, during ideological, they bring a lot of ideological competitions, which actually don't work. But what would I then give as a solution? The problem is bigger than the money you see. It is just about the state. You have a new patrimonial political culture which promotes rent seeking. And so I don't know if you know that NRM needs 1 trillion, spends 1 trillion plus violence to win an election. So actually, that was actually 2016. By now, NRM actually should be using 2 trillion for purposes of the elections. So for me, I think the most important thing is that we need to approach it more broadly. Laws will not work. We have fantastic laws in this country. But as long as the culture of respecting those laws do not work, and for me, I think it is all about ensuring that we have a state that works, that is inclusive, that is non-neo-patrimonial, you know. So for me, I think the solution is really not laws. The solution is the state and empowering the people, because government willingly wants people poor. I don't know if you've understood the nature of Ugandan's economics, what people call Musevenomics. So Musevenomics is just one formula. Let indigenous Ugandans be poor. You know what happened to Sembule investments, indigenous investments. And then you promote foreigners so that during election, you have Madivani carrying sacks of money, a trail of money, and delivering it for you in elections. Because an empowered citizenry is a danger to the state. While if they are not empowered, it facilitates patronage and neo-patrimonial politics. Yeah,
thank you, Chris. We have a hand there, Mary, and then yes, my friend from Tanzania.
Thank you so much. I'll go straight to the point. The previous speaker recalled the way in which political parties were formed in Uganda. And now here we are continuing to discuss revolving around the same political system. I have a question. Do you think we are living a lie and a fallacy? All these that we are preparing for, knowing that we have a political system that wasn't built on a firm foundation. When you look back in the 1700s, when the USA received their independence, they sat down as a people, came up with what would work for them as a people, what they wanted. Now in Uganda, we just got what someone else came up with. We had some social movements, and we start calling them political parties. Now it seems a mess everywhere. No one seems to know how to conduct themselves as a political party. Like the minister mentioned earlier when he was here, that if you find someone associating with Museveni and opposition thinks you're a traitor and you don't love your country. And so we have a mess. When shall we as a people in Uganda or East Africa or Africa, okay, sit down? When do you think is the right time that we can sit down to review entirely all these questions we have about the constitution and all? People that rise up to speak up are taken to the basement. You see these things on social media. When shall we genuinely have a people that will rise up and say, we need a total rebuild of the system? We request that government put everything on hold. Even now, people are scared about the elections. People would wish actually that that election is postponed and we first have reviews. We have constitutional reviews, the political system, but they can't speak out because of the fear of going to the basement. So when do you think we should
Thank
do
you,
this?
Mary. Just help me give the microphone to, okay, Julius, then we come back here. Sorry.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Henry and Leandra, for your input. The campaign financing is the biggest elephant in the room in our electoral processes. All these things we see, the manifestation of violence, are symptoms of money in our electoral process that is opaque, that is unaccounted for, that is unaudited. And when it comes to opaqueness on electoral financing, there is no political party. All of them generally agree that there should be darkness. So we must collectively confront this scourge. And that is why initiatives like the work that Center for Constitutional Governance is doing are very commendable, because it will take beyond the regulations. Because this Political Parties and Organizations Act has everything that needs to be done. It speaks to transparency, that political parties internally should be transparent about who funds them, who contributed to them, what monies they have on their accounts, and that any member of that political party can at any time seek to get the details of the financing. But I can tell you, across the political divide, how many of the members of political parties here or anywhere can claim that they know how their political parties are funded and what their balance sheets look like? None. It's not the absence. How much you have an idea of the amount we have? Yes, that is, and that it should be made public, which is the point that Henry is talking about. That can we have enforcement of the laws that we have already, and then build on those laws to perfect them if there are gaps. But I can tell you that is a general struggle. We must address this monster if we are going to address a number of the other things that come downstream when it comes to our electoral process, whether it is violence, whether it is use of language that foments hate, whether it all boils down to the lucrative nature of our politics. People go into elections to make money because they have invested money. And that's what the minister said earlier today. So we need to support efforts of educating our citizens to demand accountability at all levels, including within our political parties. Because you cannot give what you don't have. Transparency, accountability starts at the most critical institutions in the political process, which are political parties. So that when you get into government, or when you are in government, you already have a culture of transparency and accountability, and that you are prepared to be open to scrutiny by the people in Article 1 of the Constitution, whom we say have all the power.
Thank you, Julius. Simon, you move the microphone over to this gentleman here.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And I want to contribute my contribution as part of my solidarity message to Ugandan, because I come from this region. I'm part of the IHON. I belong to an organization called YPC as a member of the IHON. But also, I think you have a very able presenters, Henry and Komakech, Honorable, of which we could not dilute what they said. But let us say, one, in 2020 in Tanzania, we got an advert in January that you can request for accreditation. And by May, and even throughout close to election, people are getting accreditations. This year, the announcement came late May, and now we are still waiting for accreditations. And so you can just pray for us to get them, and maybe in 3 months we can make a difference to educate the people. We're talking about election, financing or political financing. In Tanzania, 15 years ago, we enacted a law called the Election Expenses Act. 15 years. To date, the enforcement is almost zero. The question could be a moral authority to enforce it. And that's very important. You can request for formation of the law, but then if it is not enforced, we just remain the same like we were in the past decades. So I do agree with Henry and the Komakech that we need to control some of the expenses and how political parties get money, especially on the illicit financial flows. In Tanzania, we lose 1.83 billion US dollars every year through illicit financial flows, which is almost 4.7 trillion Tanzanian shillings every year. This is lost through illicit financial flows in many ways, but then my worry is the same money that is being lost outside the country borders may come back during elections, and it can deaden the entire election processes. So I think as we work here, we must as well join as a region to address these matters together, voice together, to do away with whatever is going on. So I wanted also to say, because I think I don't have time later, this is the last time I have to speak, I wanted to say that I want to advise the civil society here in Uganda, and in collaboration with the commission, election commission, to organize what I learned as an election observer, an international election observer. In some of the countries, they organize regular consultations between the election management body and all election stakeholders. They have regular sessions. Not only waiting for IHON or CCG to organize, but the election commission should be obliged to organize some of these sessions regularly to talk, to create confidence to the electoral stakeholders, but also to make sure that the process is transparent and it's better done as compared to the previous one. And so finally, I want to advise the police force can be organized in an electoral year, becomes maybe they just train only a section of the police officers who will work under the control of the commission. It has worked in other countries, even in the southern part of the Africa, where during the election year, the police, those are trained to do with the elections, human rights, they are now working throughout the election process. They can work under the commission. So they get a command from the electoral management body. And if this is not a culture of Uganda,
then the civil society can start thinking of influencing so that we do something differently from other years. Thank you very much.
Let me just get one person here. How many more people want to contribute? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's just.
Thank, thank you so much. From morning, I've been hearing with so much give, because I believe since the previous elections, I believe our leaders have been misleading us. And we are somehow okay with the process. And we continue asking questions like, give us assurance. Like in the previous panel, people are being asked, give us assurance. We are asking the people who have been misleading us to give us assurance. So you're expecting to get assurance from people who have given you or misled you with their assurance before. That is what we are doing. We are continuing to ask them, like you're saying, can we ask them to give us the accountability or to tell us where they're getting that? Which is really right. I'm not saying what we are saying or what you're saying is wrong. It's right. But I think they are going to give us, they always tell us the same things, that we are going to do better because we have learned lessons from the previous. And it's going to be a continuous process. I would advise us as stakeholders differently to look at how are we going to do it moving forward. By the time we go to them with theirs, because they'll always have answers. The president in place, because they want to retain their position, they're already comfortable where they are and they are not ready to move, they'll have promises. So if we organize and we have the answer to the how before asking them for the assurance, because they will have it. And we have a dialogue on debating on our how to them. The assurance has not worked for us. We have to agree on that. And then we can also have the answers to what can we do as what we have seen. By the time even when you come here and tell us and we talk to the EC, the police, someone from the president's office, everywhere, if we get answers to that, I think it will be better for us as we discuss moving forward. It's like telling or is a woman asking a perpetrator, the husband who is beating them, the same thing. That is what we are doing. We are in a vicious cycle of violations from the people in power. And we are still giving them the power to tell us how better they are going to violate us. Which is, to me, which I think doesn't sit well, and we need to do better. So we need to agree that our leaders have misled us for a long time, and we are still giving them the power to mislead us. No.
Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Richard Obedi. I work with an organization called the Populace Foundation International. We have observed election in Kenya, in Uganda, 2016, 2012. I just liked the recommendations that you put, Liando. They're very, very critical, especially the digitalization of the electoral processes. I think you shared with Okidi, should be verifiable. But I remember when I came to pick, when we were accredited in the last election, when I came to pick our package, actually the EC team were actually here. Little did I know they were actually rounding the civil society activists or the team that set kind of a parallel IT to kind of also monitor and do kind of observation to actually kind of not alternative, but just to fact check the processes. And how sure are we that with the technology that you recommended, first of all, the state will what? Will buy in, will have a buy-in. And maybe the very thing is good enough, Comrade Julius is here. Electoral Commission has a lot of powers. Even a commissioner alone. I don't think a police commander or army commander, if an electoral commission, a commissioner rather, has stood his ground, you'll do nothing. I've observed election in Kenya twice. A commissioner, I've also been trained by IGAD, and a commissioner of the electoral commission, a policeman or an army cannot even do anything. And I think that is what, and you've also clearly said that is actually in the law. So why can those commissioners, or even the staff, the technical staff, when you think certain things are being compromised, even if your job is on the line, but if you can stand your ground, that would be a very good thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And the last. Okay.
Yes.
Wait there.
Thank you. My name is Victor Nyongesa from Ilog, Kenya. I just wanted to emphasize his point. Having an election campaign financing act is a positive step. But there must be a political goodwill to implement it. I say this because I'm looking at the situation we have in Kenya. We passed this law in 2013. To date, it has never been implemented. Why? There's no political goodwill. So as we even talk about how we want to regulate the campaign financing in Uganda and all that, we need also to start having this conversation. Do we really have that political goodwill from the guys who are in government? Because if this is a law that we are going to come up with, of course we are going to expect the parliament or the National Assembly within the Uganda to pass this law. Are they interested in it, or is it something that probably they'll see as a law that intends to deny them the chance to secure those positions? Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. And
I'm at Hira Brian. My thinking, it's not about the panelists, but when people are submitting. On the issue why political parties try to hide the source of income, is because we operate in a situation where at Hira Brian, if I pick 100 million shillings to PFF publicly, maybe my accounts will be frozen tomorrow. That's where we are. So it is better I take this money and I put it on the table. I say, you political party, don't even ever say I gave you money. That's where we're operating from. If they were saying members can contribute from their finances and they're not harassed, we would have members contribute and the money will be publicly displayed. They say, Brian gave us 100 million shillings because it has no problem. In the event you target those ones who give people money, you're fermenting where people hide the sources of money, and then you cannot have transparency on that issue. If the Electoral Commission is sure of protecting people who give money to political parties, then it can assure us of our security, and then you can give money publicly. It can be public money on the tables. That's one. Two, foreign funding. There is a habit of government accusing civil society and political parties of getting foreign funding that is used in politics. The highest beneficiary of foreign funding in this country is the government of Uganda. And if Jim steals Gavi funds, I don't think they can defeat him in Rukunjiri with all the money stolen from Gavi funds. That's legal foreign financing of a government being used illegally for electoral processes. I'm just giving an example. If like they said Sam Kutesa had a case of $500,000 with Museveni, with some Chinese, and the money comes to Uganda, you cannot know where it will end. It might end up in Rugomiyaga and such could be short. That's why it ends. All that is foreign financing, legally coming in, but illegally used in the country, or illegally coming in using systems of government. So we must also accuse the systems of government, not only accuse party systems and accuse civil society and leave government alone. People going to power using money are using money to get there. Those ones in power are using the people's money to maintain themselves in power. So do not think that this money is one-sided. No, money is from both sides. Those ones in power are using my money to shoot at me. Me, I'm using money from some Muzungu to confront them. we are all using money. That is the fact. So if you're saying money from both sides, you must deal with it as it is, foreign funding. Lastly, a girl is in this thing. RDCs, JSOs, pistols, etc. are all a girl of Museveni at polling stations. And therefore, if I'm confronting them, I must build the capacity of citizens to confront another DC, a JSO, a pistol, a police officer, to have equal balance of power. Then we can contest for election. That's where we are going.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. Charles, you're the very last person, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm privileged to be the very last. Mine goes to Leandro Kumakech. He mentioned a parameter that needed to be added to qualify our electoral process as free, fair, transparent, and verifiable. Julius mentioned somewhere that there are machines, biometric voter verification. And you promised that there will be no vote stuffing. Now, verification that Leandro talked about is verification of the votes. The biometric is verification of the voters. How will that machine ensure that stuffing does not happen? Because the vote we count is the vote that comes out after stuffing, if there was stuffing. So how are you going to ensure that there is no stuffing? Because the way I look at it, the voter verification is only for the voters, but not for the votes. When the votes are cast, you are going to count the votes, including those that are stuffed. If you can explain that, thank you.
Thank you, Charles. And then let's just respond very quickly. It is 5:42. It's been a long day. Give it to Julius first, and then we come to you people.
I think the idea is when you verify every voter biometrically, you should be able to say that if somebody is not on the voters register, if somebody did not show up to vote, no one will vote for them. Because we had this effort of compulsory and 100% BBVK verification is a response to mistrust. It's an effort towards scratching on that level of trust that needs to be created and build integrity in the electoral process. But it's not the panacea, but it is a very important first step that only those that are there, that show up, that are on the register, will vote and will be counted. Okay? The rest is what Dr. Bilete, about the transparency of the tarring process and all of that process towards then the announcement of the result of declaration. And the technology will be linked towards that end. But this biometric voter verification is addressing a specific issue and a specific concern regarding, do some people come who don't belong to a particular polling station, who are not even on that register, come from somewhere and show up with collusion, with intimidation perhaps, and then find themselves casting the ballot? Can we prevent it? So I believe this is a very important first step, but it is not the panacea. We need to do much more because the rest of the issues still remain. Violence still remains, money still remains, campaign darkness, finance darkness still remains. All those have to be addressed. But I think there is a positive step regarding this particular intervention by the actors and by the call of the people that are involved in the electoral process, saying, we have identified an issue, we need to address it, and this is one of the ways. And it's a beginning, not the end.
Thank you very much. So I need to assure this audience that across Africa, there is a growing concern around the cost of politics. Earlier on today, you saw me dashing out because we had a meeting at 1 o'clock Ugandan time where many African actors were getting together to find ways of how do we deal with this. So, you know, democracy, we have always been reminded that the foundation stone of democracy is actually good governance. And at the core of good governance is management of public resources and monies. And if you don't get to deal with corruption, then you cannot, democracy cannot yield dividends to the voters. And there's no way you're going to deal with corruption without addressing the manner in which your politics is financed. And the reason I'm saying this is because, you see, when people offer themselves to stand for elections and be elected, it is not that they are seeking power, and when they get power, it is not power for power's sake. It is power to enrich themselves, as we have seen over time. So if we don't deal with this, I think we will not be doing good service. The other one is, of course, there is pessimism around whether or not the way to go around dealing with the problem is to legislate. And normally we give an analogy. If you went to the bus park and there are two buses. One bus has a very good driver, but it has no brakes. They were removed. And another one has a driver, but it has brakes. Which one will you board? You are going to say, I'm not going to sit in one without brakes. In management of statecraft, what serves as brakes are those laws, legislations. Enforcement can be secondary, but let the laws be in place. Then we can see what else happens. And so I liked the submission of Julius, because I think you hit the nail on its head. And because you see, the reason people go into elections in many of our countries today is to enrich themselves. A colleague from Ghana was sharing with us that it started by donating simple things such as sugar, then it went to bicycles. Today, they are donating motorcycles, borders. And you can imagine, if you have a constituency of how many people you have to donate borders, you can understand how costly that politics is. The question is, how do you think that is going to be recouped? How do you, and you see when it affects everyone, your road might never be constructed because the contractor diverted all the money and handed it over to the people that were contesting. Your health center might never have drugs or never be worked on, and you will be burdened by relatives that are seeking for money to, they have malaria all the time. Everything rotates around there. So if we can fix this, you'll get to see that we'll be able to deal with the problem. The illicit finance, the proceeds of gold, of oil, the so-called cash, all this happens because the proceeds from these does not help the population, but it comes back to finance politics. And when you finance politics, it is money you have just thrown away because it is not invested in serious economic activity. So I would implore and beg that we pay attention to this scenario. We need the laws, but we also need to do a lot of sensitization. Our electorate is still immature. Democracy is a journey. Even the countries that have been practicing it over the last 200 years are still stuttering and backsliding. You are seeing what is happening in the US. So you can never have a perfect system, but I think I would be in a much better position if we manage to control the use of money in our politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Leandro, just very quickly.
Yeah, thank you. I think I concur with Henry, but I've heard my sister from my right hand. She asked a question that should be our homework. Assurances have not worked. So what can we do? That question of what can we do? This question may not be answered here. All of you who are living in this house as we take tea, what can we do? What can we do should be a constant question.
It may be answered in 20 years, in 10 years, in 5 years, but we must know the question. If we ask the right question, then it will be answered appropriately. One day, this question will be answered. And the howness, I think we also keep it a constant. What is the howness of all these issues? Should remain a question. That is a constant. And then I think as my brother Julius spoke, I wish he was the chair of the Electoral Commission. But I'm not imputing that others are not competent. But now what we need to revisit, according to what he raised, is how are electoral commissioners appointed? This should be a constitutional question. Because political parties across board, ever since Article 260, case of Sebogere and Olums, and the reintroduction of political pluralism, we have not seen an inclusiveness in the management of election in Uganda. And this should go beyond the chair of electoral commission. It should go to the president of Uganda and the parliament of Uganda. How do we review on constituting an electoral body? We have seen in many countries where all political interest groups, religious groups, and everybody sit and agree and say, Sarah will be one of them, Julius will be one of them, and then they go and constitute themselves and elect themselves, you know? So I think we need to look at that as well, that we may not be appointing them just unilaterally, but it should be through a public process, properly exposed to the whole country. And that process may help us to filter out those that may not be morally within our understanding of morality. So let's keep thinking about how do we reconstruct the electoral commission as well. We assume there are a few here and there who may be having other interests. So I leave it to everybody to think about it. Then Charles, my uncle, is about the verifiability. Let us think about it. Madam Sarah and Chris, there's the next technology conference and election thing. How do we make sure that we guard against this? How do we verify? Yeah. You know, these ICT guys, if they talk about how easy it is to rig election, you just get so scared. They just tell you how they create servers, how they do what, and you just find that you are just actually making a mockery of a democracy. So let's keep on the right questions and the right issues. Otherwise, I thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you very much to our panelists, Henry Mguzi and you, Honorable Leandro Komakech. Drake, if you could just come in here and just give us a synthesis of what we've discussed from morning. If you could do that in about 10 minutes or less, that would be really good.
I know we are tired and it's been a long day, but I'll try to be as laconic as possible. So it's been an interesting day today, and a couple of issues have been raised, a couple of concerns have been voiced, and these are the summaries